Drac, wake up. It's Friday.
It's Top 5 Friday, and we're going to be talking about...
What's that on your face?
What? It's a mustache. It's a beard.
It's not November yet.
What's up, Blaster Girls and Zombie Lads? I'm Drac, and today we're going to be talking about the top 5 body kits in the hobby right now. And admittedly, the list is kind of biased by what I happen to have in the shop at present, but I have a lot of things in the shop at present, and I've tasted all the flavors and smelled all the smells, so I can give you an informed opinion. Now, I do want to mention briefly that body kits have been kind of controversial. The rise of the so-called kit modder, which there's nothing wrong with at all, has led some people to believe that somehow the original modders, like the old blood modders that have been doing this forever, like myself, and others who have mostly retired at this point, are somehow lesser. And I don't feel lesser at all. I really love body kits. I think that they are very cool, not just tactical, but also like very interesting, and it's awesome that the hobby is in a place where it can support these companies making these kits that let anybody kind of do basic level aesthetics in a way that most people might not be able to, either because they live in a country where painting is difficult or buying tools or hardware or whatever is insane, and it lets pretty much anybody with a 3D printer or a friend with a 3D printer make something that's aesthetically very interesting and ergonomically very different. So we'll start off with our honorable mentions. The honorable mentions are actually going to start with the Prophecy Kit from Worker. Now, the Prophecy Kit, I wanted to get on the channel and like make sure that I mentioned in this because the Prophecy Kit's beating heart is not actually the Prophecy Blaster itself, but this awesome foregrip that blends into a pump action with internalized rails for the Retaliator. So all in all, the kit in and of itself really is more for Retaliator. So in a lot of ways, this is one of the best Retaliator body kits out there. This one is optimized for Stefan slinging, but this one I took out to the SCNC. So the Blue Dot D is ready to launch full-length darts, and I think that that is pretty cool in and of itself. So in addition to kits like the Prophecy, which are entirely built around non-Nerf parts, so not really a body kit, but kind of, I also want to briefly touch on like things like my X-Mando, which is again an entirely hobby-grade blaster, and is not so much a body kit as it is an entire body built around a kit. Don't worry about that, but the honorable mentions is just that I really wanted to mention that in this hobby, there are now blasters that have nothing to do with original Nerf internals necessarily, or even externals necessarily. And so while the body kits make a lot of things look different, some things are entirely unique. They're their own thing, and that's pretty cool. So with that said, getting that out of the way, acknowledging that there are a lot of these kits that are not even Nerf blasters in the first place, let's move on to our number 5. Number 5 is actually unexpected in that it is a rival blaster, and it's not just any rival blaster, it's one of the OG rival blasters. So this is of course the Apollo. This one specifically is the Hades, which is my modification of the Apollo, and this features a body kit that honestly, like, kind of, sort of, I feel like Worker sort of deboed the idea from my friend Avery, but Avery did the custom 3D Nerf version, and then very shortly after, Worker came out with an injection molded version of the kit that did basically the exact same thing in that it created a shotgun style priming grip and attached it to the original claw grip. Now, the stock, you can choose a variety of stocks for the Apollo, but this is entirely the 3D printed custom one. Now, sorry about your ears, headphone users, but scraping 3D print on 3D print is a real pain. However, before we had like actual shotgun blasters that were good like the Artemis, this was an excellent body kit, and in a lot of ways, since it still reloads Uzi style, is superior in terms of its rapid reload capability. The Artemis is great for topping off constantly, but this body kit was just so ambitious when it came out, and it was so much plastic parts. Like, the kit itself cost more than the blaster that it went around, and it dramatically improved and changed the overall function of the blaster. So I mean, in addition to just giving Avery his mad props for designing something like this and bringing it to market, this is a very involved, very heavy body kit that does a lot of work both functionally and aesthetically. It turns something that was a really weird pistol type blaster with a super awkward back end into a full-on magazine fed shotgun. So like, that was really, really neat, and I liked it an awful lot. So that's our only rival contender on the list. Let's move into the stripes. The variety of strife body kits that turn the stripes into what I like to call Call of Duty rifles, or realistically various kinds of assault rifles. Like, these are full-size rifle pipe blasters. You can add foregrips or lights or scopes to the variety of integrated tactical rails on them. They're realistically built around this platform of sliding sheaths over a replacement to the strife's original kind of running rail here, and then covering up the entirety of that orange piece with these side tactical rails. This one in particular is the Galil variant. I'm very happy with this one, and it's one of the least expensive because, stock aside, it's just a top rail, some aesthetic pieces, and then the puzzling that goes around what I just described, combined with a really cool flash hider. Now, as nice as that is, I really like this one. Is usable for wars and will be given away to one of my patrons on Patreon pretty soon.
Link in the description box. Just saying.
Sometimes I like to go super overboard with these builds, such as in my G36K build. Now, this has a much larger front end that slips over that same piece made by F10555. I also added an AR-15 foregrip. This is a micro sort of AFG with ergo built in. I think that that's just really, really nice. The G36 comes with its own sort of custom stock. It is a foldable stock, which is a neat feature of the kit. That'll fold in. Now, I have loaded up a battery into this one because I want to show off how tactical it is, although it's acting up right now. They always misbehave on camera, so let's put the stock back where it goes. Since I did add an expanded battery tray, it does not like folding down all the way anymore, so now I have to be really forceful with it when I snap it back into place. You can see that this house is a full 2S graphene LiPo, which powers not only the internals, but I decided that this one was a very tactical strife and deserved to be full auto, since I believe the G36K is full auto. There are definitely some variants of the G36 that are not full auto, but if I was going to paint it black and make it just full-on tactical with all the rails and the foregrip and the stock and the sights up top, then why not make it into a full-on AR? Rate of fire is slick. This is a really cool primary class build that unfortunately never really gets to go out to SE&C Wars because I would have to just drown it in orange flagging tape. But it kind of shows you the dichotomy in a lot of these strife kits, and they make them for a variety of different reasons. I combined them into one number on the list because honestly, very similar goals executed in very different ways. But the Galil is very tactical. It's one of my favorite COD weapons. The G36 is one of my favorite real steel firearms to fire in full auto. Like, they're just both really, really cool rifles, and there's a dozen more out there that you could build in different ways. I currently have an AK on the workbench right now that I'm working on, and have been for a little while, but that's not even a worker version of this kit. It's another company entirely, so there's a lot of different ways to go with it. Just as a friendly shout out, not getting paid to say this, I buy almost all of my body kits of this variety from Monkey Mods because they have the best prices. Just period. Their customer service is really good. They've always been very kind to me, and so I like to pay that forward when I can. Let's move on to number 3. So the number 3 kit is this specifically. Now, the Hammershot being the most popular Nerf sidearm at this point, I'm pretty sure is very, very ubiquitous amongst HVZ players and stock class players alike. Plus, most households have a Hammershot in them if they have boys who Nerf. Now, this is made by my friend Yang, and it dramatically changes the overall profile of the Hammershot, extends the tack rail so that you could do some really cool, like, BFR style scopes on top if you really wanted to, but mostly I just like that it's a fully 3D printed integrated way to make it into a long sort of revolver, which is nice. It's got a very Destiny feel to it, which I think is super duper cool. Yang's prints are ultra clean. You can see that in the wording up here. Like, he just has really high quality prints. Aesthetically, it looks really neat, and it gives you much cooler looking iron sights. It does not functionally change the Hammershot at all. You would not want to add a foregrip to this. It's kind of heavier now and harder to holster, but as far as like the gunslinger in me wants to make one of these golden, the Destiny player in me really wants to like turn it into a last word or something like that. And then, I mean, there's just a ton of different cool sci-fi heroes that have big revolvers. Like, that's just, I don't know, it's a real power play in the same way that the Desert Eagle is iconic, I guess. But I really like the Hammershot in general, so you know that I had to get a Hammershot kit on the list, and I want to thank my boy Yang for sending me one to feature. Let's move on to our number 2, which has slightly less Wild West action and slightly more future tech, sort of Resident Evil style. So I feel like to adequately talk about body kits and to omit the Vector kit would be a huge mistake. The Vector kit originally showed up a couple of years ago in 3D printed form. At this point, they are injection molded because they are so very popular. It gives the Strife an awesome foregrip here, or tactical rails to put one up here. It also gives you a longer barrel and a way more tactical, like, just feel to it in general. You can make it like pistol Vector style, which is appropriate for a Vector, or you can slap on a stock and turn it into a rifle as well. This is Equinox, which is my personal Vector, and I really wanted something that would take advantage of the black tactical nature of the kit. So I expanded the battery tray, threw a tactical light on, really played off the dichotomy between light and darkness, and now it has like a super subtle hex hydrographic job as well as Drac logos that hide underneath it. I think that this is what a lot of Vectors should aspire to be. Most Vectors just wind up being full body kits on stock Nerf blasters, but I think that it's a really sleek kit. The Vector itself is a very innovative firearm, and it allows you to like really take your aesthetic game to the next level by combining a top shelf Strife with all of the bells and whistles. With the Vector kit, you get a much more interesting aesthetic piece that overall is still hyper functional. A lot of the blasters that I'm featuring are Strifes because the Strife is the most compact flywheel blaster, and that lends itself very nicely to the body kit. Just the flawless way that this blends in to the Strife's handguard and changes that overall form factor, in addition to the extended magazine release, now that you have a full like handguard in here, is just very nice. The Vector becomes far more tactical in this variety. It becomes a much larger blaster, way less pistol at this point, and far more suited to that pseudo primary role. With the stock, it goes full primary, but I had to feature the Vector because so many Nerfers, this is what they think of when they think of like the day the body kits invaded. They're talking about the Vector and how it seemed like as soon as these dropped, everybody had to have one. They were so very cool, and I was no exception. I had to make a top shelf Vector. So if the Vector, being so popular and so ubiquitous, is my choice for number 2, what could possibly beat it out for number 1? Well, I'll tell you. Number 1 is Bullpups, because I love Bullpups. So this is the Swordfish kit. It is really cool. It comes to us from Argus Modworks, and again, like, it is a Strife, but this is by far and above the most creative utilization of the Strife in body kit form. First off, it completely replaces the control unit back here up in the front. That's how it becomes a bullpup. It puts the action behind the trigger group. Now, the rev switch is connected electronically, but in a very clever way, the forward firing switch actually connects to the original switch in such a way that it has to have a magazine in to actuate it. But you can see back here that there is an indicator letting you know that you are in fact pulling the Strife's original mechanical trigger. Now, it also maintains that original sort of heel in the Strife as a sling attachment point, which is important for a bullpup such as this. And you can sort of see where the Strife is inside the shell, even though most of it is covered up. It also adds a secondary battery tray to the back by extending the Strife over a full like 1.5 inches there, and it does that in an innovative fashion by creating this sort of like hidden panel on the cheek rest, and I think that that's really cool. Overall, this is a marvel of 3D printing. I'm not ashamed to say that I am very impressed by it technically and aesthetically. Plus, I really like bullpups. The addition of the foregrip makes it very comfortable for cutting tight corners. This would be an excellent HVZ blaster, and the really neat thing is that because it's 3D printed, it could be 3D printed in any color, which means that while this one is tactical black on a neon orange Strife, you could just as easily print it in Elite Blue to match an old school Strife, which I've been talking to Argus and he says he might be able to hook us up with, at which point I'd be able to make an insane bullpup Strife probably with an expanded motor cage. We get some XP180s in there. I've been meaning to try out some new cages. Just like a lot of cool stuff could happen in that space. But this is my number one pick. I think that the swordfish is very exciting, not just because I actually really like it, but also because of like, it shows how far we've come. This is the newest body kit on the table, and it's doing the most. It's fundamentally changing the aesthetic of the blaster. It's changing the overall ergonomic performance of it. It's actually changing mechanically how it functions by moving everything forward, including how you reload by making you reload like this instead of out in front of yourself. And it's aesthetically pleasing. It's doing a lot functionally, it's doing a lot aesthetically, and it's very innovative in how it's been 3D printed and put together. And that, in my opinion, is what it takes to like really make it this late in the body game kit like world. I would not be surprised to see somebody pick up Argus ModWorks, like Worker might contact them or something like that, because it seems like, yeah, never mind. Anyway, this is a really cool body kit. It is my absolute number one pick. If you want to check out any of the kits that I've featured here, I will link to all of them in the description box below. Some of them are available on Amazon. A couple of those links will be to my friends over at Monkey Mods. And then the only place that I know to get the Argus is on their Facebook page. So thank you guys very much for watching. I really truly hope that you enjoyed this look at these new kind of players in the game that are making this hobby so very special and so very diverse. Now everybody can make something that's aesthetically pleasing, whether they're expert level painters or complete novices. Like, everybody can put together a basic puzzle like a body kit, and it's really interesting to see not only what companies come up with, but in particular, for me personally, I love seeing what other people come up with and use their body kits for, because some people get really creative with them. Thank you guys very much for watching. As always, I hope that you really enjoyed this video. Feel free to check out the rest of my top 5 playlist coming up in this end screen, and much love, Nerf on, Drac out.